Behind the Covers, peeling back the covers to reveal what it really takes for authors to get from concept to publication and beyond. Each week, host and author Brandy M. invites you to join her and her guest to share the journey of getting our books out of our heads, onto the page, and out into the world where it can make a difference in your life and the lives of others. And now, host, author, and chief executive storyteller for 40daywriter.com, Brandy M. Miller.
Hi there. Welcome back to the Behind the Covers podcast at 40 Day Writer Studios. Come on in. Take a seat. Coffee's in the kitchen. Relax. Take your shoes off. Get comfortable. We're going to talk books and just a little bit with Pamela Taeuffer. She's a good friend of mine out in California. But before we go into that, I want to say thank you for coming last week to join me in talking to Gaurav Wadekar about his book, An Immigrant's Guide to Integration. If you haven't listened in on that conversation, hit the pause button and go do that one first. You're going to love it. His book is nonfiction, so it's a little bit different. This week's is fiction. I kind of like to cover the gambit because no matter what book you're trying to write, the process really is the same. You're going to encounter those same struggles. You're going to encounter those same troubles. Speaking of situations, struggles, and troubles, man, last week was rough for me. After I got through with the interview, I got sick for a few days. It's kind of flu season around here, and man, I got a bad cough. So I was down for the count, but it's a good reminder, a good way of the body hitting that pause button and saying it's time to take time for you. Don't focus on everything that you're trying to do. Spend some time focusing on you. It's a good reminder for you and I as we go into this new year that we need to take time to take care of ourselves. Just as much as we take care of our characters, our families, our jobs, our coworkers, our employees, our employers, and the people who come that we serve. We take care of all these people, and our cup is constantly being poured out in their service. So it's kind of important to take a step back and remember to take care of yourself too. That's what sick reminds you. It's kind of the body's way of saying, hey, slow down. Take a moment. Remember, you've only got this one life, and sometimes you need to be the priority. So if we haven't been making ourselves a priority like we sometimes forget to do, when you start getting sick, just remember, your body's just telling you it's time to make you top of your list. So what are you doing to take care of you? What are you doing in this new year to take care of you and make sure that your needs are getting met? To make sure that your dreams are getting met? To make sure the things you want are happening in your life? Well, if you haven't already signed up, I just want to remind you that my webinar, Unstoppable You, the art, science, and math of transforming past pains into personal superpowers that will leave you unstoppable and undefeatable, is coming up this Saturday. Can you believe it? It's already almost here. Yes, Saturday, January 20th from 7 p.m. to 7:30. You can find the link on my Facebook page or you can search for it through Eventbrite. I really encourage you. Take that 30 minutes, invest that time in yourself. Do something kind for you this week. Make yourself, your dreams, and your future your priority. So that's my advice for you. If you happen to be in Denver and you would like to come, the Kids Workshop still does have spaces open. It's $50 for the child. That includes all materials. They're going to get some cool stuff. They're going to get some stuff to take home with them. $50 a child. I do require an adult to be present with them. The adult's going to get as much out of it as the kid. So it's kind of a 2-for-1. The adult and the child are both going to get something out of being there. But it's going to be at the Inglewood Public Library from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the Altenberg Room. and we're just going to go over the basics of writing. Because every story has the same structure, and it really doesn't matter if you're telling a nonfiction story, and yes, those are stories, a nonfiction story, a memoir, or a fiction story. They all have the same structure. You're always going to see the same block of characters appear. You're always going to have the same supporting elements, and then you're going to put it all together in basically the same way. The goal may be different, but the way you tell it is basically the same. So we're going to have that Kids Can Write workshop from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. there at the Inglewood Public Library in the Altenberg room. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Remember, it's $50 at the door or $50 if you register online. Either way, I'd be excited to have you. The webinar that evening, though, is free. So, and I do have people who have already gotten their tickets. We do have tickets left, so there's plenty of room for you. Bring a friend, even if it's a virtual friend, and do something good for you. Okay? So that's my big start to this week. Now, friend, it's time to step in and let's go talk to Pamela Taeuffer. Let's go talk about her Broken Heart series and how she got started with Behind the Covers, that podcast where we're peeling back those covers to reveal what it really takes for an author to go from concept to publication and beyond. Good. Welcome to the show where we're going behind the covers to peel back those layers and find out what it really takes for an author to get from concept to publication and beyond. We're very excited to have author Pamela Taeuffer on board. And welcome, Pam. Let's talk about your book, The Shadow Heart series.
Thank you.
Yeah. So did you publish these yourself or did you go through a traditional publisher?
Yes, I did self-publish. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did you have a particular reason for choosing that route or?
I wanted to just get it done. It was, I took 4 years to get the series concept completed and written to the point where I knew how I wanted to end it and all of that. And by that time, I just wanted to see some production. And quite honestly, it's so much energy, work, and effort to get it to that point that I just didn't want to spend any more searching for a publisher. Now, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't go that route in the future. It would just me, my personality. I just need to see something done and complete so it fit me.
Yeah, absolutely. Your books are available on Amazon right now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Are they in other retail outlets?
Not other retail. I am looking to do Smashwords and Book Baby and Lulu, and I also have a spot on Goodreads, so they're there too, but I haven't fully uploaded everything to those other platforms yet.
Okay, great. Describe your book in 5 sentences or less.
Okay, so the series is called Broken Bottles. And Shadow Heart is a fictional family saga, which basically follows a woman who's come of age after growing up in a dysfunctional family battling alcoholism. Now, what that does is it creates trust issues, some emotional detachment. And so we follow her and learn how she overcomes this, if she overcomes it, and the techniques that she uses to do so.
So is this based on life experience for you?
Yes, some of it is. I did grow up in that kind of a family, and it did take me a long time to really be an intimate person and embrace friendship, not only, true intimacy with a partner, but friendship issues as well. You do, for me, I was detached and I didn't want people to get too close. So I wrote this series in hopes that it could help women coming of age, young adults, but also women transitioning.
Yeah, I think that you're totally spot on. I grew up also in an abusive environment, and trust was the hardest thing for me to learn.
Yes. Trusting
another human being, opening up to people.
Yes. Yeah,
being
not
vulnerable.
Yeah,
because growing up, your weaknesses were used against you. So,
yes, that's right.
Anytime you were vulnerable, that was a weakness, and weakness was an opportunity to attack you. So,
yes,
it made it really hard to open up and trust. So, but who is the intended audience for your book? You know,
Yeah. So the intended audience, that's a tough one to nail down just for your listeners, because you at first you're so filled with joy and enthusiasm. You just want everybody, oh, this is for everybody. Well, yes, it is. But who I really want is the young adult woman, teenager, an older teenager, a young adult woman coming of age who's ready to either go off into life or college. And then the woman who is kind of on that verge of empty nester, her children are getting older and she's ready to maybe take on a career or just change her life, from focus on children to self in different ways.
Awesome. Okay. Was this the first book you'd ever written, or was it just the first book you published?
As far as book, I wrote a lot of stories, short stories. But as far as book, yes, it was the first.
Well, congratulations, because
Thank you.
my first book I would never have published. In fact, there's a lighter and some gasoline and a match, just waiting for that thing.
Right. I wanted to do that sometimes, but I didn't.
I'm not even sure there's enough editing in the world to help that first book that I wrote.
Yeah. That's the key. Editing. And even when it came out, I was horrified, that there were errors that people that helped me that I paid, to catch. And so it's one of those things you just have to let go, and I actually have gone back a couple of times and revised it and re-released it. That's the beauty about digital, you can do it very quickly.
It's so much easier these days than when you had to pay for the copies up front.
Yeah.
Like you used to have to buy in bulk. I mean,
Right.
it was used to, if you wanted a decent price, you had to buy like 1,000 copies. So you might have 1,000 copies sitting in your garage that had mistakes all through it.
Exactly.
And there's nothing more discouraging. So before you decided to write a book, what did you imagine the publishing process would be?
Oh, of course. I imagined this grand, as soon as it, first of all, before it was published, to get into it, the formatting. Who knew?
It's such a small part. Well, it's such a small part on the surface, but it can be a nightmare.
Oh, yeah. Formatting for these different platforms too, not only Amazon, so that was the first thing to learn. Then finding a cover designer that's quality, that doesn't, look like it's just thrown together. The editing we just talked about, how that's a process, and the different types of editing, is like, okay, here's somebody that's a story coach. Here's somebody that's a line copy editor, it was quite an eye-awakening as to how much is involved to get to that process.
Yeah, I think that people who have the luxury of just handing it to a traditional publisher and stepping back and letting it go really miss out, in a sense, on
I think so too.
On learning what all is involved. I mean, truly, it gave me a new appreciation for what traditional publishers do.
I agree.
I mean, I honestly, before I went through that process, I was like, gosh, it seems like they hold on to a whole lot of the royalties,
Right.
That's a lot. And then when, at the end of my self-publishing journey, it was like, holy cow, I know what you're paying them for. You're paying them so you can keep writing.
That's right. Absolutely.
Because they take a lot of the headache out. You don't have to worry about the cover designer. You don't have to worry about the publicity team. You don't have to worry about the graphic design team. You don't have to worry about the formatting. You don't have to worry about the editing, because they've got those people that they've hired.
That's right. Yeah, it's a lot of energy, and you just, used up a ton yourself by writing the darn
Right,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah, so absolutely. I'm in complete agreement.
And, I don't think people understand self-publishing is not the easier path to making money.
No.
It's actually the harder path. I think it has some more rewards to it, in that you have more creative control. You do have more ability to make the decisions about whether or not you want to fight for your creative work or not.
Right.
But on the other hand, you're trading off a whole lot too.
Yes.
That, and that's something you kind of have to understand, that you're going to have to invest in yourself in ways you wouldn't otherwise.
Right. I'm glad I went through the process, but now that I have, I'm kind of on the mindset, if and when I do start another series, I might like to go the traditional route.
Yeah, I would like to too. I mean, I'm at the point where I'm like, at this point in time, I understand what they do enough to value them and to be able to talk to them as a business to business person.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's part of the value of going through that self-publishing experience, is that you can come to the table and talk shop.
Right. Absolutely.
And you understand their point of view, and you're not like expecting unrealistic things.
Right. That's right.
I help a lot of authors get their books out there. And one of the fun things to hear when somebody comes to you is, my book is going to be a bestseller.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Well,
yeah.
And,
it's going to be a bestseller, huh?
Right. And you don't want to kill that innocent enthusiasm either. You don't
want to kill the enthusiasm, but then the next question you have to ask is, do you know what it takes to become a bestseller?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you realize you have to sell 9,000 copies of your book in a week?
Right. Hours and hours every day, way more than I've got.
Running, 90 days worth of promotional campaigns where you're on, talk shows, and you're on radio shows, and you're on podcasts, and you're on blogs, and all to get that momentum going for the book. And then if you want to stay on that bestseller list, you have to keep it going.
Yes. Yes.
It's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
I used to have no idea. It was basically a black box. You finished the book, you handed it off to the publisher, and that was it.
Right. No,
and somehow on the other end of it, it came out on a bookshelf.
Yeah, that's right.
And let's see. So how long had you been thinking about writing a book before you sat down to write your first book?
Oh, gosh, 40 years. I mean, from very, very young, I wrote, from the silly stuff that we do, rhyming and all of that when we're younger, to more teenage stories, horror, kind of stories, and growing up type of things. Yeah, I've always wanted to. And I always knew that somehow I needed to take my situation growing up, because there's so many of us, when you start talking to people, I mean, it's so prevalent. And it's okay that you went through it. You're okay. And it's always been a mission of mine.
Yeah. And so what actually made you finally go ahead and sit down and do it?
My son was out on his own, and my husband and I were, we weren't going through a difficult time together or financially, but something was changing. I needed to just fill this vacancy that I felt all of a sudden. And so I just started. One night I just started, and it just took off and carried me away.
And I think that is the case, that at some point in time you just have to decide, okay, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
For me, it was NaNoWriMo the first year that I participated, and that was in 2004. And I was in college. I had a son who was in grade school, and my husband was working a whole lot, so I really didn't see him much. But I just decided, you know what? I can give it 30 days.
Yeah.
And what amazed me was when I sat down and calculated how many words per day I would have to finish to get it done in 30 days. It surprised me that it was so little.
Mm-hmm.
That you could really write a book. 60,000 words in 30 days is just 2,000 words a day.
Right.
That's not actually that much.
Right.
And it's like, I think we make a big deal out of writing books, and the actual writing of them isn't a big deal.
No, that's right. And it's so, who doesn't like being taken into their alternate world?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's one of the great experiences of writing is to, take yourself off into that other world for just that, many, however you set aside. And it's well worthwhile. And like you say, it doesn't take that much time in reality.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I have learned is that it's not about creating characters or even about creating the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like you're discovering the characters in the world.
That's right.
And you're kind of letting them walk you through their story.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And I think when I first started writing, I think that was part of my problem, was that I kept trying to control the story.
Yeah.
Because I had this notion that it was mine.
Right. Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The first ending that I set aside for this series is nothing, like what I'm thinking about now. I actually left the ending open a little bit. I know how I want it to go, but I left it open a little bit because as I go along in part 1, 2, and which affects things out here. And so, yeah, the characters do lead you along.
Yeah, definitely. So let's see. What made you actually decide to write that book? And then how long did it take you to finish the first book?
Well, why I decided to was basically I felt myself, in this new space. I wanted something. I'm a really hard worker. I own and manage and run my own business. It's a family business with just 3 of us, but I created it out of nothing. I started it with nothing. And but that wasn't enough all of a sudden. Suddenly I just didn't want to work 12 hours a day anymore. I wanted something else. And not with the monetary dream. Yes, of course, that's out there. But the fulfillment, so I decided that and started writing. It took me 4 years to get the first book out. But during the 4 years, I also had many books done in the series, not polished, but I had the storyline and a lot of the books done as well. And then to carve out the first book and finish and all of that, 4 years from thought to out.
Wow, that's a lot of investment of time.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And
yeah.
It's still ongoing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's the case for any of us who are creative. The process never really ends.
No, no, I don't want it to.
No, not really. So, where did you get the idea for the book? I mean, obviously you pulled from your past background, but
right.
But yeah. Where?
Well, but also through the life experiences. For example, one of my parts that I related to my father go to baseball games, and so I entered baseball into the story as a backdrop there. Growing up in San Francisco as a backdrop, and what those experiences were. So a lot of it is from my upbringing, and then thought process as a mature woman now, as to what I was going through then, and kind of how that led me along, and the lessons. So yeah, mostly all life experiences and what's happened and all of that.
Okay. So what would you say was the hardest part about writing it?
The hardest part about writing it, I didn't find that there was any difficulty, really. I just loved it. I'm still loving it. Probably the amount of time editing it. It's kind of...
it's funny that you say that, because the last 2 interviews, that's exactly what people have talked about, was that it's not the writing that's the hard part. It's really getting in there and editing that really is the sticking point. It is. What do I take out? What needs to go in?
Right. Putting your babies away is painful.
Yeah, exactly. And it is. It's shaping your baby, getting them ready to be mature enough to walk out there and meet the world.
Right. That's right.
It's almost like parenting. It's like,
we want it done, I mean, I've got this thing, I want it out.
And yet, that if you just flat release it, it's not going to be its best.
No. And you have to go through the crying on the bad reviews.
Yeah. And I've gotten those, I've gotten twice now. I've gotten 1-star reviews, one on a different book. So, and those are showstoppers, like, wow, okay, I got this 1-star review. should I quit writing?
Right. Yeah. No, I went through that a little bit. I think you and I had actually talked during that time, and it's not an easy thing to get through, but it's worth it to get through it.
Yeah. But, well, what I came to realize was, the 1-star reviewer isn't really necessarily trying to hurt you. Some of them are just, they're jerks. Okay,
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, some
people, yeah, some people are going to troll you. They're going to leave a 1-star review because it makes them feel more powerful.
Yeah, that's right.
But a lot of people aren't really trying to hurt you. What they're trying to do, and I think it's a gift that they actually leave a review, because getting people to leave reviews is a headache in and of itself.
Harder and harder.
Oh yeah. I don't think most non-authors realize just how much we live for those reviews.
No, that's right. No, they don't.
Because those reviews are actually what push our books to the front on sites like Amazon and things, but they don't realize it. And so somebody who's leaving a 1-star review, okay, so they left a bad review, but at least they took the time to leave a review.
Right.
So you had to really push some emotional button there.
Yeah.
Either good or bad, to get them to leave a review.
Exactly. And that's the way I've come to look at it. You got them some way. May not be the way that you hoped, but you have something going there.
Exactly. They don't take their time out of their day to leave a review for just anything.
Yes.
Most people will just ignore it and pass on. You'll never know what they thought.
No, exactly.
But those that leave reviews are actually telling you in some way that you have made a difference somehow.
Right.
Good or bad, you have made a difference.
No, that's right.
Yeah. So let's see. Did you ever encounter writer's block while you were writing?
I never did. Not so far. No, I don't.
Good. Well, good on you. I have. But that may be because I was trying so hard to control the direction of the story that it would kind of get stumbled up and blocked up, and then I would have to go back and put it on the side for a while.
Well, you've done multiple things too. I mean, I've got a lot more books to come in this singular series before I branch out. So when I branch out from this, what I'm working on, we'll see.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I've learned though that writer's block is usually just a matter of either you're not listening to your characters or you don't have enough information.
Yeah.
Like if you're writing something and you don't know how exactly would this person manage to accomplish this goal. Mm-hmm. That's when your brain is like, need more input.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. And, I've a lot of times have taken something that's a couple of books down that I know I need to resolve because of an earlier thing. And I'll just start writing a paragraph or two and, okay, what's the thought process here? And sometimes it all just sort of works itself out from there. So.
Yeah. And, sometimes maybe I know one time I started to have writer's block, and what I did to solve it was actually sit down and interview my main character. Just, ask her questions about. So, and what had happened was I was not happy with the story. I wasn't in love with it. I wasn't in love with the character. I didn't like it. And so my brain was like, we're done with this.
Yeah.
So once I interviewed her and got to know her a little better, and then I could fall in love with her again, then it was easier to write her story.
Yeah.
Because then I could see who she was and, what challenges she was facing.
Right.
So,
good tip.
All right. So let's see. Do you have a mentor when you're writing?
Well, I suppose I have my family for the experiences, both my childhood family and my married family now. No, I mean, I love the writing style of Anne Rice. I just love her, the way she's very poetic, in her writing. And then I really enjoy Dylan Thomas, his poetry. But no, other than those two, no.
Not a specific mentor?
No.
Okay. So who is your biggest supporter in your writing?
Actually, my biggest supporter is beyond my family is number one. And then number two is a good friend of mine who is with me on the process. She's a marriage family therapist who helped me
nice.
and she helped me outline some of the more technical aspects, and get over some of the humps that I was trying to from a technical and therapeutic standpoint.
Good deal. Do you belong to a writer's group, or did you during the writing of this?
I did not when I first started, but as I went along, yes, I joined Redwood Writers in Sonoma County.
Good. And what was your experience with the writers group?
Well, it's great because they bring a lot of, they have editors that are part of it. They have cover designers, formatters. They have individual writers groups to help with these kinds of issues, writer's block and all of that kind of thing. And they have guest speakers come in that, present different topics. So it lets you not only make contacts for networking, but help to further your own efforts.
Yeah, when I was in a writer's group, one of the most helpful things was getting feedback from the ordinary person on the street isn't always really helpful because they don't know what to tell you. They don't know how to, they'll tell you, oh, it's great, or, oh, it stinks, or, or, hey, it was okay. But they can't tell you specifically where things fell apart.
Right.
Like I can't tell you if there's a flaw in the dialogue. Your character sounds a little robotic, or, they keep switching voices. You need to pick one and stick with it.
Yes.
Things like that.
Yeah, that was really helpful. I had one lady tell me, she says, your dialogue itself is so interesting, but it's like talking heads, because it was like she said, he said, she did this, he did this. Because, you need to shift in their seat or reach for the drink or something like that, and that was immensely helpful. Yes.
Yeah, I've kind of stopped using he said, she said altogether and let their behavior tell me who the speaker is.
Right. Yeah.
It jars some people because they're expecting the he said, she said.
Yeah.
But then once they get used to it, they like it better.
Yeah, and it makes them focus more on the story too.
Mm-hmm. Right. Instead of pulling them out of the story, it's part of the story.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah. Let's see. Yes, that. I gotta find where we pick up next. Wow. Okay, so what kind of things do you do to market your books?
Well, I'm guilty in not being consistent. My, day business takes a lot of time and energy, but I have done Goodreads giveaways, Amazon giveaways, multiple book promotion sites, my own website, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and newsletters.
What have you found to be the most helpful as far as marketing?
The most helpful has actually been Facebook contacts for me. I've developed a mini email list, which I don't cultivate properly. But nevertheless, I've got a few hundred names, and if I was really on the ball marketing, I'd be on that. But that's really been a key for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, the Amazon giveaways and Goodreads giveaways, I don't seem to ever hear from those people again, even though, I've given away literally a few 10,000s of books.
Wow.
Yeah, and who knows where they are.
Yeah, and whether they read them or not.
Yeah.
I've done Amazon's Kindle, book giveaway, and you can get 650 downloads.
Oh, yeah.
But whether or not they ever open the book and read it, who knows?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Sometimes I think people just like the word free, and they'll take it whether or not they intend to do anything with it.
Absolutely.
And so, I haven't necessarily found that to be the most helpful thing either. So let's see. What do you wish you'd known then that you have learned since publishing your book?
I wish I would have learned about pre-launches and exposure out in the marketplace beforehand. I wish I would have known the effort that it takes to market and get your book known. If I had known that beforehand, it would have been great to have put on social media. Gosh, I'm at this spot, and and the learning, and to bring the person along with me. That's the biggest thing I think I wish.
Yeah, I agree. When I first self-published, I had no idea, that you should have a launch lead up.
Yeah, I was like, what?
And CreateSpace doesn't really offer an easy way to do pre-sales. You can. There's ways to jimmy the system to make it work for you, but it's not built into CreateSpace.
Yeah.
Like it is with Ingram Spark or Lulu. They have pre-orders built into their platforms. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I wish I had understood how much work goes in before the book even launches.
Me too.
Because I think that would have gone a long ways toward helping.
I think so too. I mean, you're in that creative process. It's nothing to, get on and, do a tweet or, get on Facebook or whatever, post a picture in Pinterest. There you are with all your stuff spread out, here, I mean, that would have been great, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even maybe, like doing a video introduction to a character.
Exactly.
Like this is this character, this is their story.
Right.
The backstory anyway. You're not going to tell the front story, but the backstory, and get people looking at them and loving them before they even get a chance to meet them. Yeah,
the Goodreads groups and all of that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would have been nice to cultivate that.
Yeah. So, since publishing your first book, how many additional books have you published?
I have 3 more in the series that are out. And I have 3 anthologies and 1 business networking book in the middle of all that. Kind of a weird thing to have out there, but it's a business networking book for introverted people, and how you go about, participating in a conference when all you really want to do is sit in the back and listen.
That is a challenge. And I think that's something that a lot of would-be authors tend to be introverts. So I think that business networking tool can be really important, because one of the things I've learned the hard way is that it is all about networking. If you want to really sell your books, it does not matter. It does not matter how good your book is if nobody knows it exists.
That's right.
It doesn't matter how good your book is if nobody knows you.
No.
I have sold 20 books in 5 minutes because somebody knew me through somebody else. So, versus taking months to sell 20 copies.
Right.
I mean, it's a huge difference when people know you on a personal level and know what you represent. So, are you currently working on any titles?
Yes, I'm working on the next 3 in my series: Rising Heart, Steel Heart, and Singing Heart.
Ooh.
And those I'm almost done with that. I have the cover done for number 5. I need covers for 6 and 7 and a final edit on 7. And I hope to get those out this coming spring.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
So just give us a short overview of what those books go over.
Okay, so the first 4 books has really kind of followed Nikki, who is our heroine, and how she's been on a one-way mission for her education and getting out of the house. She's Stanford bound to college, and all of a sudden she has a love interest. And her life is just kind of turned into chaos now, and she doesn't know how to handle herself. She's socially really inept, the whole thing. So 5, 6, and 7 throw challenges her way. This love interest is a professional baseball player who's an experienced man, and she is not an experienced woman. And so it's learning to deal and trust that what this person is telling me is true. His past is his past, even as challenges continue to come her way, and how she overcomes them, or at least tries to overcome them and stay put without running away.
Yeah, well, that is the trick, isn't it? I mean, when you've been abused, your tendency is to run. Get out of here. Because if you can escape trouble before it hits you, that's the best plan, right?
That's right. Exactly.
All right. So what you were expecting to publish in spring. And let's see, where can the audience go to learn more about your works in progress and what you're working on?
Sure. So I have a website. It's my name, PamelaTaeuffer.com. And then also an Amazon author page, and that'll tell about what's coming and current news, etc.
Awesome. So, all right. If you had any advice out there to give the would-be author that's sitting in their chair right now that believes they have a book in them but just hasn't found the courage to sit down and write it, what would you say to them?
Okay. So I would say get some education now before you even start or finish your book. You know, do some research on promotion and publishing. Work on your book's promotion 6 to 12 months before you plan to finish. And on writing, there's just nothing like staying with it. You just have to stay with it. No matter what the excuse is, time, you're dejected or jubilated, those are all normal, and every emotion in between. Don't let others get you down. Your audience, be very careful. I was given really bad advice on my audience and genre. I was put into romance, and it is not a romance. It's a love story, but if the overriding genre is family saga and women's fiction. And it's taken me a long time to move that out of it. And I still get people misunderstanding because they're expecting happily ever after, you know, every novel. And every novel is, you know, quite a heavy journey.
So let me stop you right there, and
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
Because I know that when we first talked last year, you had been given that advice to put it
Yes.
into romance,
Yes.
and the reviews stank.
Yes. They did.
And you were on the verge of quitting writing altogether.
Yeah, I was, you know, I thought, you know, I don't need to take this and I can just, you know, write my story for myself and, you know, finish it that way. And, you know, my personality is to start reaching out, and I found you and a few others, and in my writers group as well. And through talking to all of you, you know, just really, that was one of the things I discovered. I took on a writing coach, actually, and have people read your stuff. You know, these professionals, quote, that you hire for formatting and editing and stuff, they don't have the time to read your stuff. They're just doing a job. And if you have some beta readers, not your family, but
Yeah, no, not your family.
people who can really be objective and give it to you straight. And I found through Beth, my coach, that's how she helped me narrow down the genre. And literally, kid you not, I probably spent about $20,000 in the wrong places with the wrong people. And that was the biggest mistake. The genre was wrong, therefore my audience was totally wrong.
Yeah, and so the reviews were reflecting the fact that this isn't what we want.
Yes, exactly. And once I changed that, most of the books now are averaging 4 stars and above.
Awesome. See,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the difference of having the right genre.
Right.
And knowing what your genre is and knowing
Yes.
your audience, the right audience.
Yeah.
Because if you get pigeonholed in the wrong way, it's not going to appeal.
Oh, it was awful. It was an awful experience. And it's a tough thing, you know, when you're writing and you're trying to get your book out, you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't know. And the only way you can do that is, like you said, through talking to others, networking, you know, exploring, well, what did you do? What do you think? That's the best scenario right there.
Yeah, and it is easy to spend a lot of money and get no results.
Oh, yeah. No,
I mean, and that can be really discouraging too.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you know, I gave away close to 20,000 books. Big deal. You know what I mean? So where did they go? You know? So anyways, you live and learn. It's an experience.
Have you been having any success getting your books into libraries and bookstores?
I have not tried that. I have not been active on that.
Yeah. I was talking to an author, like an interview earlier, and she was talking about the fact that she has actually approached them and had good success with that.
Great.
That they're eager to get them. So I was wondering if you'd had a chance to try that.
Yeah, no, I have not.
Yeah, I haven't either. I need to put my gears on and go for that too.
Yeah.
But no, it's really good talking to you. And
you too, Brandy.
Has there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we wrap this session up?
Patience, it's really, we're not a patient group generally. When we start writing, we want to get it done, get it out there. But boy, patience is a key, and education. You need to educate yourself and explore and know what it is, that not only you're doing, but what it is to market, what it is to publish, what the whole process means if you're going to carry it through.
Yeah, and I think that's true whether or not you go with a traditional publisher or not. I mean,
Yes.
I think you should know
Yeah.
what goes into it so that you can sit at that table and be a business person to business person rather than business person to ignorant person.
Yeah, no,
Because you
absolutely.
can get taken advantage of by
Sure you
publishing. There are plenty of places out there that'll take your money and
Oh, yeah.
and you won't get the results you wanted, and you won't get maybe not even the traction you needed.
No,
So,
watch out for those vanity presses. They're big time ripoffs.
Yeah, I mean, if they're charging you $5,000 to just publish the book, chances are good it's not really.
No. No, traditional publishers not going to charge you.
No, traditional publisher. No, self-publishing does have costs involved.
Right. Oh, yes.
Yeah. There's the cover, and there's the interior formatting, and there's editing, obviously,
Right.
and there's multiple kinds of editing.
Right.
So there are costs involved, but it should not be.
Not that.
Yeah. Well, if they list off that they're going to provide you with things that you can get for free on CreateSpace, avoid them.
There you go. There you go.
Because they're probably going to publish through CreateSpace.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been really awesome talking with you again. This is
Same here.
the Behind the Covers podcast, where we're revealing the layers underneath what it takes to really get your book out from concept to publication and beyond. And this has been Pamela Taeuffer, and we really appreciate having her on board with her Shadow Hearts series.
Thank you.
So
very
look
much.
that up on Amazon and let us know. Remember, leave a review. Authors love reviews.
Yes, we do.
All right. Thanks, and have a great day.
You too. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, friends, that was Pamela Taeuffer with her Broken Heart series. Thank you so much for joining me again this week. I was really excited to have you, and I hope you got as much out of it as I did. I mean, she and I talked a lot about the editing that goes on. I hope you learned a lot about that, because it is a big, important step and not one that you need to skip. I made the mistake of publishing my first book without going through an editor. It really was not my best work. And I hate to say that. Do you really want to put something that's not your best, not your present best anyway, out there for the world to see? Or do you want to hold on to it? Make sure that it's got all the content that you think it needs. I got some 4 and 5 stars, even with my not editing. But that's not the point. Maybe I could have gotten all 5 stars. Maybe I never would have had that 1-star review. If I had put more time and effort into it. But that's a story for another day. Another thing that she got to was being sure that you pick the right genre for your book. Don't let somebody who's never read your book tell you what genre your book belongs in. Genre does matter. And it matters a lot. It's kind of like people might like your book, but if they're expecting a romance, they expect 2 people to fall in love by the end of the book. That's what a romance is all about. It's about the falling in love. If you don't have 2 people falling in love by the end of the book, it's not a romance. And you're going to confuse your readers. It's kind of like if I came up to you and asked you, do you like ice cream? And you say, yes, I love ice cream. And then I hand you mashed potatoes in an ice cream cone, and you take a bite. You may absolutely love mashed potatoes. But you're going to go, ew, gross, what is this? Because you're not expecting mashed potatoes in an ice cream cone. You're expecting ice cream in an ice cream cone. That's why genre matters. It sets the proper expectation for what they're going to get. And be sure that you research the genre. Know what readers expect to receive when they have a book in that genre. I will confess, I made a big mistake that way one time. I was helping somebody else, and I understood the genre. I thought I did. But I decided I was going to improve on the genre. And don't make that mistake. Your readers like what they like. Okay? And if you're not a big name, you don't have permission to mess with their genre. So I thought I could improve on their genre because it kind of irritated me the way they handled it. So I wrote it the way I would have liked to read it. That book got torn to pieces. Most of the people who really follow that genre did not like it because it didn't meet their specifications. So genre matters, and doing the genre right, knowing what the reader expects for that genre is really important too. Okay, don't go into a genre where you aren't clear on what they want. Read at least 10 of the top 10 books in that genre before you try to write in it, so that you know what to expect and how to deliver. And it helps if you actually do or are involved in the kind of things that they're involved in. All right, and then another thing that I thought was really great was how she talked about how much work is involved in the self-publishing process. There is a lot of work that goes into self-publishing. I kid you not. There's all these details, so many small details that come up to add to this big picture. It's not just a cover, it's not just a formatting, it's all those little details that come together to make a really good book. The interior formatting does matter because it affects how readable the book is. A bad formatting job can make it really hard for the person to read the book. Bad font choices, weird placement, where maybe things get cut off before the end of the page, or maybe it's shifted in a wrong direction. All of those little bitty pieces that go into formatting can add up to leaving your readers with a big headache, and maybe they don't even bother to finish the book because it's so hard for them to read. So all of that matters, and you do need to work with somebody who knows and understands that before you even get started. But thanks again for joining me. I really appreciate it. So our next guest is going to be Randy Wire with his book, The Case of the Invisible Souls. I hope you're going to come and stay tuned for that. It's going to be a great interview. He's a lot of fun, great guest. And I think you're going to learn a lot from him too. He's another fiction writer, but even if you're writing nonfiction, you can learn from those nonfiction writers just as much as you can from another nonfiction writer. But I do hope you come. He's a very great guest, and I'm really honored that he's going to be on our show. So this is me, Brandy M. Miller from 40 Day Writer Studios, signing off this week from Behind the Covers. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope to see you next week.
This has been Behind the Covers with host and author Brandy Miller. Behind the Covers is a 40-day writer production, produced and mixed by Randall Miller. For additional information about the show, advertising opportunities, booking, and more, please visit 40daywriter.com. Behind the Covers is copyright 2018. All rights reserved. Join us next week and explore more of the world of writing and publishing on Behind the Covers.